The only scan tool you need, the MotorScan Universal Diagnostic Scan Tool for motorcycles, scooters, ATVs and UTVs, and side-by-sides. Handheld and easy to use. Works with 87 brands, over 6,000 models, and more than 16,000 applications.
The LS2 Thunder Carbon. FIM approved. World Championship technology. Lightweight. Aerodynamic. Outrageous margins. Visit ls2usa.com.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to another awesome episode of On the Throttle with Jackie Van Ham and my buddy Josh here, bringing you all of the newest news going on out here in motorcycling. As always, thanks for clicking, liking, and sharing all of our videos. Josh, welcome to another great episode. We've got a lot of great news going on. I myself just got back from a glorious weekend down at Daytona Bike Week, one of my favorite events of the year. I had a total blast down there. Great racing, very, very crowded already. I think people are really chomping at the bit to come out and go check out motorcycling events after like a 2-year break, right, Josh? I know I even talked about on last week's episode a couple more awesome events that are being added to the 2022 calendar. So as always, make sure you go click back down thread or back through our files. All of these videos live out here on the interwebs forever and ever, and you can rewatch previous episodes if you missed a previous program. Now, first things first, Josh, we've got some news going on in your neck of the woods from the folks from Honda. What's going on?
So we've got some electrifying news from Honda, which seems kind of weird because Honda hasn't trickled much of that out yet. And then my other story, if you like drama, but not in your own life, there's some drama coming up this weekend that we've got. So what do you have to cover this week?
As always, Josh, thank you for the delicious,
I do what I can.
Delicious dad jokes. Thank you, Josh, for bringing it home for me. I actually have a very, very timely story. I brought it up last week on the program about a little bit of news that had just hit the internet about the folks from Buell. The current version of Buell are relaunched. They've been around for just a hot second now, but they had 2 new bikes that they were going to be showing at Daytona for the very first time. While I was down there, I made sure to stop by, check those out. Actually, I had the good fortune of talking to one of their chief engineers, chief product engineers while I was there and got some photos. So I've got a great story about that today. But let's go ahead and jump on in to your Honda news.
So Honda's finally deciding to do something electric, and where better to start than with the small bikes, right? KTM and Indian have both figured out that if you get kids hooked on their electric bikes, and kids are easier to hook on the electric bikes, they're probably going to stick with this. So once again, it's get the kids hooked, they're going to stick with it. So Honda has partnered with Grainger Powersports to make a 48-volt DC dirt bike that you see here in this photo. So in this has 3.4 peak horsepower, peak tire shredding horsepower here, 1.6 continuous. It has 18.4 foot-pounds of torque at peak, 4.1 continuous. It has a 20 amp hour to 960 watt hour battery. Now, here's the big thing. This battery is, what is the term that we've all been looking at in terms of battery electrics being usable for us? The battery is swappable. Yes, Honda's doing this right. You can get 2 hours in ideal conditions. So figure on Junior getting about probably an hour and 20 minutes out of a battery on this. It takes 4 hours to recharge on a normal charger, 2.5 hours on a quick charger. Buy a spare battery or two. Junior can ride all day long. You pull them into the pits, pull the battery out, slap a new one in. It's faster than filling up a tank of gas, even on something like a Z50. And Junior's good to go back going riding. So when I look back, I still remember with my first ATV when I was a kid that I always had to wait for my father to gas it up because I had my ATV. It was in our barn, which also happened to be my dad's wood shop. And for some odd reason, he didn't like having, the first time I tried, He did not like having a floor that was soaked in both gasoline and sawdust for some odd reason. Not sure why. So I think the battery being swappable is good to go. You set it on the shelf, Junior can grab it, stick it in his bike, and go. This will work with up to a 99-pound rider. So as soon as Junior hits triple digits, gets chunky enough for triple digits, it's time to move on. This bike itself only weighs 108 with the battery and full of electrons. Dun-dun-dun. Another bad dad joke there. The price on this is $2,950. So to me, it's a good price. I mean, it's just not going to wear out. It's an electric motor. This is probably going to outlast, the kids' boots, helmets, and jersey that you see him wearing there. Pass it on. The battery being swappable makes it nice. So that way down the road, as battery technology improves, this bike will improve. Totally upgradable. To me, I think, once again, it's give the kids, pardon me saying this, it's give the kids the drugs early and they are going to be hooked for life. And I think Honda's got the right program with this. What are your thoughts, Jackie?
So I totally agree with you. But the first thing I'm going to take you to task for here, Josh, is referencing he and Junior an awful lot in this segment, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but girls ride
True.
dirt bikes too.
They do.
So this is a great way to get your kids started on dirt bikes. I agree with you. I love the idea of the swappable batteries. This is such a slam dunk for me. This makes so much sense, as well as, I know we talk about e-bikes a lot on this show, and we're going to be talking about them an awful lot this week and next week, because the news is just full of e-bike news right now.
Yes.
But I really love the idea of being able to, get folks started, get kids started on these little e-bikes. And you're right, you start them in one brand and you can move them through the brand. You progress them through the brand. And I'm seeing companies kind of buying more into this idea. I also like the idea of folks that are jumping into raising their children on dirt bikes who maybe don't come from a dirt bike background. This is a really nice option because it also keeps your vehicle clean. There's no more gas. There's no more oil. It's nice and tidy. I like traveling with my little e-bike because of that. I can throw it in the back of my X5 and just take it wherever I want. And I don't have to worry about gas or anything. So that's also a really nice option for families, because obviously this itty bitty little machine, this is all about families. It's something that's this small. This is not for anybody but little itty bitty mini kids. So I think that that's really, really speaks to families and getting outside. And I think it's just a really great, really nice option. And again, I can't stress enough how just pivotal the swappable battery, I think, for dirt bike, e-bike application is, because you can travel with 2 or 3 and trade them out while you're out on the rail, or out on the trails, or out in the sand, or out in the desert, or whatever you're doing. As a side note, I love traveling and riding dirt bikes, e-bikes out in the dirt, because you can hear. Like, there's something really nice about being involved in nature. And I know those of you out there are going to eat me alive about the internal combustion engine and the sound of the pipes and all that jazz. But being out in nature is so nice to do also, like when it's nice and just peaceful and quiet. There's something really, really lovely about it. So I think that that is a really neat, cool thing. I'm really curious to see what this is going to look like as far as price tag. I don't know if you grabbed those numbers, Josh, or not. I thought I saw, I was going to say, I thought it was sub $3,000, which is again, like, yes. Yes, Big Red. Good job, Honda. So I'm really, really excited about that. I think that that is really great news. And the swappable battery thing, again, I know it's been in the news a whole lot lately, and we're going to keep hearing about it. And I think even next week's show, we're going to talk about it a little bit. So make sure you guys come on back. Speaking of coming on back, speaking of today's program, I would like to take a second and go ahead and thank this segment's sponsor, a new company to us over here. This segment is brought to you by MOGO. Increase your profit and add more value to your customers' investment with MOGO's small vehicle GPS tracking solutions. Help your customers track and protect their motorcycles, Powersports vehicles, and more. So thanks to our buddies out there at MoGo for being our segment sponsor for today's program. Now, Josh, I wanted to go ahead and talk about, and this was just so timely, because last week I talked about this sneak peek, this launch that was happening at Daytona. And then, of course, I was going to Daytona. So I made sure to go up to Destination Daytona, which is up in Ormond Beach, and check out 2 new bikes from the folks at Buell. And I went ahead and grabbed some photos so we'd have them for today's show, hot and ready for you. The first bike on your screen is going to be their dirt bike that they launched at Daytona. They literally just launched these on the 5th of March. So this is beep, 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 breaking news, hot off the presses. This is a for real deal dirt bike with that huge 1190 twin engine in it. This thing puts out over 180 horsepower for a dirt bike, Josh. And luckily, there was a gentleman on hand. His name was Dean. He's a chief production engineer. And so, I picked his brain about both of these new bikes and made sure to talk to him about it. So here, my first question was, who on earth is the customer for this bike? Who is buying this bike? What is this bike for? Who needs a 180 horsepower dirt bike? He said this is definitely specifically in mind for folks that are doing hill climb racing, which is a very, very small, very niche market. But the last, I think, 2 national hill climb events here in the United States were won by a Buell. So I thought that
Yep.
that was really, really interesting. I've got a photo of that too. Ashley, if you can go ahead and throw that next slide. I think I've got a picture of a little bit closer of this Buell dirt bike that is going to be going into production. This is real, by the way. I made sure to ask if this was a prototype or a concept. He said these are prototypes, these are real. They're going to take this is the only one of one that they have currently. They're going to be taking this and testing this like crazy, and then they're going to be going into production with this. As you can see from that elongated and adjustable, look at the little holes at the very bottom
Yeah.
at that rear. This is an adjustable swing arm, so this is entirely meant 100% for hill climb. If you throw that next slide up, they even brought and had on hand the winning hill climb bike that has been winning the U.S. hill climbs going on here in the United States, as I just mentioned, that 895 bike. And I had no idea. I honestly did not know anything about this, so that was all brand news to me. So I thought that was really neat. So they're going to be going into production with over 180 horsepower hill climb bike, which was super, super mind blowing. But now here's where it gets real interesting. The other bike that I featured on last week's show, which you can always go and check out the previous shows here on Facebook or on YouTube, there was a very shrouded in mystery. It was full of tons of shadows. You couldn't see exactly what was happening, but it was a bike that had big aluminum boxes on it. I really was expecting like a true adventure bike. Josh, you and I both talk on the show a lot about this
Yeah.
huge growth in this segment. Everybody's getting into the ADV game. I was really expecting to see like a full tilt, full slap ADV shot across the bow at the GS and Pan America Market bike. That's really what I had in my mind. This is
Agreed.
not it. This is not what happened. So go ahead and throw that slide up, Ashley, because I went ahead and got some photos of that bike. Oh, this is the engine, by the way. I also, while talking to Dean, again, this production engineer, I did ask, is this 1190 V-twin engine, is this what's going into everything currently? And he admitted that yes, this is the one engine that they have right now. This is not produced in Michigan, but everything else is assembled in Michigan. So they are employing Americans. This is an American manufacturer, which that's cool, great news. No matter where you fall on the fence, on what side of the fence of the whole Buell saga and Buell story, employing Americans, I think is really, really great. And I'm going to give them some love and give them their flowers and give them some support. But this one engine is what's going into every single bike. So I made sure to bring up and ask him, I mean, is there a future? Is there development? Are they going to do something different? Is there going to be a single? Because Buell in the Wayback Machine, before it's purchased by Liquid Assets Holding Company, they did do single cylinder machines. They did do an adventure bike called the Ulysses. They did do the Blast. They did do lots and lots of different things. And he said, yes, we absolutely intend to honor the legacy. They consider themselves a very, very much a steward of the Buell legacy, and they are looking into developing different engines going forward beyond 2023 and into 2024. So I thought that was really interesting news. And then one last side note before I show you the adventure bike, one last side note is I did make sure to pick his brain and bring up, the one question that you can't ask. So I of course went ahead and asked it, which is, does Eric Buell, is there like some sort of bad blood, and is there like bad news between Eric Buell and the new Buell? He said absolutely not. He said Bill, I believe his last name is Warner, Bill Warner, who is the owner of Liquid Assets, who's the new president of Buell, and actually not new, he's been president for a while now, who's the current president of Buell. He said he considers Eric a friend. They do speak frequently. He does reach out sometimes, in a very unofficial capacity, just to talk about where they're going, where they're headed. And he does consider him a friend of the brand. And Eric Buell, he says, wishes them nothing but the best. And so I thought that that was really interesting and made a point of bringing that up here on the show. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and check out the adventure bike that is going to be coming from Buell. And again, this is a production machine. As you can see, aluminum boxes. It smells like an adventure bike, but now look at the rest of it. It's got totally street tires on it. The super aggressive styling. This is really basically, Josh, this is a sport bike. This is a sport bike with boxes and a huge front windshield on it. And that's also got, if you can show the next slide, I think I grabbed a shot from the front. Hopefully it's got these double lights up front. It does have a little LED bar over the front as well. Oh, I wanted to show the cockpit because this also I thought was really interesting. The cockpit of this, Josh, if you're going to play in the adventure bike category, every other adventure bike that holds this $22,000 price tag is covered in gadgets, covered in whiz bangs, tons of computer technology, huge digital dash. Everybody's doing it. Harley Davidson, BMW, everybody that's playing in this space is just loaded with gadgets on the front. This, nothing. Very, very naked. Very, very simple. Next slide, please. Very, very simple styling on this. Again, much more of like a sport bike feel that just happens to have like a little bit of adventure vibe going on with it. So that is what's going on for the folks at Buell. What do you think about these bikes, Josh?
So first off, I mean, if we go back to that very first slide that we had, and you could see those multiple points for that rear axle. I just figured, kind of joking around here, that was the chain adjustment, because with 180 horsepower, you're going to do one run, and then you're going to need to move that back a notch because the chain is now stretched 3 inches because of that. So, I mean, all in all, it's interesting that they're going after this niche market like this, and I think they can capture that. When you look at the hill climb bikes are just, I hate to say it, but it's the Frankenstein bikes of any sort of racing. The other day I was scrolling through some stuff, and there's a nitromethane R1 engine in a Yamaha WR250 chassis. If I remember correctly, it was dynoed at right around 325 horsepower. That's what they're using to climb hills in some of these unlimited classes. I want absolutely nothing to do with that. For them to go after this market, if it's purpose built for this, I mean, to be honest with you, it's going to be a great platform because everyone else is having to build stuff from scratch and Frankenstein stuff. As far as the bike being an adventure bike, it's interesting. It's not. When I look at it, I see there's some adventure there. It's not going to be like the 1290S adventure. It's much more road going than that, but I still feel like, hey, if you find something that's maybe a little bit of gravel, you may be able to take that on, whatever. I mean, heck, I was out in some gravel roads the other day, and there was some guy on a Triumph ST out there.
Well, really, Josh, any bike can be an adventure bike if you want it bad enough.
Correct. And there's some people that take unintentional adventures too off into the wilderness. I get that too.
To be fair, the adventure commentary is just from me reading, the spy photos and the fact that it has these huge aluminum boxes on it. This bike is referenced from the Buell people as a super touring 1190. I am the one who is like putting the ADV vibe on it, but I mean, it does have an ADV vibe. They put aluminum boxes on it, for goodness sake. So you can't fault me for thinking they were going that way, but this is definitely not that. This is a super tour, but again, over 180 horsepower, bananas.
Especially when you looked at all the websites that I saw were listing it as an adventure bike. And when I look at those front forks, much of an off-road adventure there, and those things are going to fold. So yeah, I agree. It was interesting. They teased it out as an adventure bike, but it's like you said, this is sport touring all day long. And I think it's going to be a cool bike for that.
And I've got no qualm. Yeah, I've got no qualm with it being a sport tour at all. But then I wonder
Right.
about these styling cues, like the big aluminum box, like the windshield, like the double.
Yes.
And I didn't grab a picture of it. My bad. You can kind of see it on the screen. But anyway, it's got a set of double lights up front and then an LED bar right over the front fender.
Right.
Um, I just find it really, really curious. It feels a little mishmash. I don't know if if they're trying to be so different that they're going into this space because nobody's playing there. That's kind of a very Buell thing. Buell's always been about being different. Buell was doing adventure bikes and Ulysses and things way before everybody else jumped in. So maybe this is just really, really true to the DNA of Buell, or maybe it's just a mishmash of parts that they happen to have on the shelf when they were purchased by a holding company. We will all have to stay tuned, but I do love that
Agreed.
hill climber. I think that that's awesome. Their production is going to be quite small, so I mean, why not go dabble in these very niche spaces, these very tiny spaces,
Yep.
right? So that's what I have
And
to say
it's
about the Buell story. I think it was really, really cool and neat to see. However, they are very nice,
yeah.
lovely people, and I wish them nothing but the best. And I will definitely keep an eye on where they are headed.
The other thing that I wanted to add with that is I think they made a good move by not having the gadgets on it. That is an area that is hugely capital intensive. When you look at the money that Honda, KTM, BMW have spent on gadgets, and there are still riders out there that like the analog experience. I mean, hell, most of the
Yeah,
time you can find me on my DRZ. It's still carbureted.
yeah.
And I still love it. So to get that
Yeah,
analog experience, it's a better way for them to go.
I'm honestly gonna completely agree with you 110% on that because I can't tell if these are like purposeful design
Yeah.
elements or not, but I love that also because I'm not a huge computer dork. Those whiz bangs are pretty much lost on me, and if they're lost on me, they're probably lost on a decent chunk of the segment that's out there. So anyway, without much further ado, I will leave that subject there. You can go ahead and duke it out in the comments and let me know what you guys think out there watching at home. Let us know if you are yay or nay for these new bikes from Buell. We will be jumping in and saying hey to you in the comments as well, and we will I'm going to bring my hot tea and we're going to argue about it. So be ready. Okay, Josh, what's going on next for your second story for today?
So, if speaking of drama and speaking of duking it out, a lot of us we got sucked into the Netflix Drive to Survive series about Formula One. Was a great series. I mean, Netflix does a phenomenal job of putting stuff like that together. Kudos to them, but we're like, hey, there's too many wheels on these things. So Amazon decided to pick up where Netflix left off, and they are coming out with MotoGP Unlimited. It's set to start releasing on the 14th, so just a couple of days. So that being said, they are going to be 50-minute episodes. They are featuring the main riders on there are Quartararo, Rossi, Marquez, Bagnaia, Zarco, Vinales, and Mir. So they've followed those guys throughout the entire season last year. And correct me if I'm wrong, there was a little bit of drama involved in that season last year. Just a smidge. So to me, I'm really excited for that to kind of be unpacked a little bit. So that way we get to see those full stories and see how those went.
I agree with you. I am such a sucker for these limited series and limited production series that have been going on. I love this because it's basically like I could watch an entire season in a handful of hours and get all of the drama and all of the tastiness, and they show all of the highlights. And I can knock it out over one weekend on my couch with my dogs and a bowl of popcorn. So I am a sucker for these things. I cannot wait to watch this. This looks really exciting, and you're right. There was plenty of drama to be had last year, and the season is already starting off with some drama. There was a race just this past weekend. It was all over the place. Make sure you go check it out on the internet if you missed it. I'm sure we'll be discussing it here, or at least parts of this season here on the program. So make sure you come on back and check it out.
Definitely.
As always, Josh and I are always bringing you all the newest news going on out here in motorcycling. So thank you so much for clicking, liking, and sharing. You got to share these videos. We want to make sure everybody's up on the newest news out there. So make sure you hit that share button as well. And with that, I will say have an awesome week, and we will see you next week, guys. Thank you so much, everybody.